evening. I'd like to call the Greenbush Central School District Board of Education meeting for January 14, 2026. Attendance, everybody is present except for Jesse.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Person tonight is student council.
Hello, everyone. So as we know, this week is the end of semester one. Students will wrapping up their midterms. I believe the last day of midterms is tomorrow for most students. And then next week, we're going to Regents Week.
Today our meeting we discussed an end of the year field trip, so we're having a tentative date in March, and we voted on going to the mall on American weekend, which is really fun, and we chose this because everybody can have a choice in the field too, but all start a good time together. And then as an executive council, we were discussing having a vendor fair in May at Columbia, where people can come and have like a stand kind of in the back of their car, and we can also have a field trip, food truck come, and so that's going to be a potential fundraiser class today. So we're excited about that. And we're just discussing possible activities and events that we can have in people because it's a kind of slow month. So we're really coming up with ways to get school spirit up and so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Approval of draft minutes for the meeting of December 17th, 2025. Any questions or comments? Okay, can I have a motion to approve? Robert, second. Rob. All those in favor? And abstaining? Okay, this is the board forum. Thanks, Mr. Having upstairs, huh?
I have one quick thing that I just wanted to share with you and give a shout out. Before the holiday break, Rob and I did a visit over to the transportation department, and Dr. Coates and Marty joined us, and Craig Lips and the team there just gave us a terrific overview of their operation. It is really fascinating, just the complexity of the logistics that go into moving our students every single day. And I think last year, my first year on the board, we heard a lot about transportation and these concerns that there's a tremendous amount of stability there. And I really give a lot of kudos to our new leadership and to our new leadership at the transportation department, but the whole team that really keeps that place running. So thanks for having us, and it was just a really great opportunity.
I second everything Samantha said.
Okay, moving on to public forum. Residents, students, employees, and business representatives of the Greenbush Central School District may address the board on matters concerning programs and or operations of the district, other than matters involving personnel. Members of the board do not directly respond to citizen concerns during the public forum. If a response is appropriate, either the president or superintendent will contact the individual in the near future. Those persons wishing to address the board will be recognized by the chair of the meeting and should state for the record their name and address or affiliation with the district. While the board does not wish to infringe upon free speech protections, it must be stressed that the visitor's forum is not being open. The board president will conduct the forum for the board of directors before business. In addition, any remarks which may be considered defamatory or stigmatizing are prohibited and will be declared out of order. All comments shall be limited to 5 minutes. Moving into the course and presentations on a capital project phase 2 bid resolution.
We are in the position where we are going to invite Turner and Lavella forward tonight to discuss the outcome of the bids for phase 2 of the capital permit project. They will partner with Ms. Mulligan to share some details on the results, and subsequent to that, There are no questions. We'll be asking the board by resolution to approve some of the bids. We'll turn it over to Turner and Lavelle.
Oh, thank you, Nicholas. Thank you for having us tonight. Michael Collins, Department of Instruction. So the information that you're going to see here about in the slides are the bid results for the phase 2 of the capital project. It's mainly Red Mill and Goff and Goff Library. So you'll see the bid package results, these numbers and these contractors are according to approval. So we'll get to the first slide. General contractor, Bonnie Christie was a little bidder, and you'll see here alternates 1, 2, and 3 are going to be accepted. On the last slide, we'll kind of give you a summary of phase 1, phase 2, and budget. Plumbing contractor, the low bidder at bid day was the Jezron total base bid, but because of taking alternates 1 and 2, probably valid for plumbing. Mechanical contractors, Kipper Heating and Plumbing. As a little bit, I can tell you that we've spent since bid opening to now to presenting these numbers to you, scope every low bidder to make sure that they were comfortable with the numbers and the scope and even the scope of the project. So that's been all vetted out. The next electrical contractor that you'll see is East Empire Electric. It's kind of significant here. They had a very low bid compared to number 2, which was $548. It was very strange to us as a team. We did go through with them, asking if they were comfortable with the number. They went through the scope with us. They're very confident. So,
anyway, before you go on, explain like to the group the alternate number 1, 2, and 3 with that.
so alternate, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, definitely.
Alternate 1 and 2 are to replace space and casework in the classrooms in 2 different areas of the building. So alternate 1, I believe, was in the rear addition on the first floor, and then alternate 2 was below that level, lower ground level. Alternate 3, which was on the previous side for the general contractor, is for finishing additional floor coverings in some of the classrooms that had not yet been replaced yet. It was just to get a number, and it was accepted to include to just refinish the floors and a few of the classrooms.
Just a follow-up, so I think we're doing that, but it was just bid sort of on add-on.
Yes, for a bunch of reasons, if the budget allowed.
Okay.
Alternates 4 and 5 for the site contractor were not taken. Okay, they're just there for reference. The site contractor right now is J.H. Malloy. At that time, the loan was HMA, but they had their contractors getting some circumstances. So, luckily enough, J.H. Malloy was a good second at $27,000 over the program. Next, these are the alternate descriptions as Devin just described. And then the low bidders, total base bid with the awarded alternates, and the totals for each contract that are awarded tonight. The next is, these are non-bid contracts. These are state contracts directly with vendors. So there are 2 before you. There'll be 2 per train, 1 for the equipment only that will be handed over to the mechanical contractor for installation, and then the controls, which train as preferred throughout the district. They'll do the controls for install. The automation will do security, and game time is providing the playground equipment at Red Hill. So these are before you tonight. And this is just a budget summary for what is let out at this point through phase 1 and phase 2. We've got a total of, the bottom number 1.983 is what we're under budget right now. Phase 2 was over budget, if you want to call it, as we compared to the track budget. It was over by about $409,000, and most of that was due to the plumbing add-on that we added to regular. But overall, district's in a very good position moving forward into, we'll call it the heavy hitter phases of the project, phase 3, 4, 5. So.
All right. And now this is Mike. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, Mike just mentioned that we're in a really great position in terms of the overall construction budget, but it's a little bit more complicated as to how we lay out to fund, that particular deficit of $109,000. What we have in this project is we have multiple phases, thank you. And multiple buildings within each phase, and we have to be able to track maximum cost allowances. So there's there's a lot more detail involved. So basically, this project has three buckets with it. There's the construction for Goff, which is related to the library, and then there's two components for Red Mill. There's the actual construction, and then there's the construction that's site construction. So everything that's outside the building. So we have to track that information separately. So what ends up happening is, and some of this allocation right now is preliminary. So this allocation is based on what we do, that Turner helps with the FCD estimate. But I thought it was important to be just transparent on how the flow of the money may look. The contractors post this bid award, they will provide us with a schedule of values, which will fine tune these allocations. So basically, based on our pre-rec budget, we're anticipating a surplus on the dock construction. Based on that surplus is going to help fund the Red Mill construction, which is primarily related to the Red Mill sanitary sewer work that was added on. And then we did anticipate as part of the pre-rec that there could be some overruns on the site side, but our Goff phase 1B budget is going to help us with that. So, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. At the end of the day, we're covering all of that $409,000 in deficit. We've been able to transfer $300,000 of it within phase 2, but that $533,000 needs to come from phase 1B. And I'll explain why we are not looking at phase 1A or that to cover that deficit.
So, two questions on that. We're doing this, right? That makes sense, but this is assuming there's no issues during the construction, right? No
So
conditions.
that's actually an important point. So within this, there's thank you.
It turned off.
It turned off. We got it. Where's the button?
Is it green?
Follow the sketch. There we go. Okay. Okay. So towards the bottom of this slide, right above the phase 2 subtotal is the contingency form. So Turner had built into the project budget that there's $555,000 of contingency that could come in. So for example, if we didn't spend any of that contingency, that $409,000 deficit is basically.
Okay. That was it. Thank you.
Yep. So that was built in. I think it's just the value is under 5%.
And I have a second question. Not related. Any, it might be for you guys. Why was the pre-reference budget 1.3 versus 1.8 for operational site construction? Because that's not related to the sewer, is it?
Yeah. So
Numbers that work with.
Right, Red Mill site construction, the award is 1.8, but it was anticipated to be 1.2.
So Mike, this is the pre-ref SED estimate breakdown.
Yeah, this is
Yep.
I guess the pre-rep is before we even understand what the magnitude of the scope is for the playground. And I think some of the contributing factors to this was all of the playground equipment itself was a little bit more than anticipated in pre-rep.
So what ends up happening, just part of the budgeting process for the project, it's very high level before we go out to the vote. And then after the project vote, then the design teams come in and the estimating meetings come in and everything, and the actual, what are we going to construct? And then the estimates are refined, that kind of thing. So we're monitoring the entire project as a whole, and then within the phases, and within those phases, within the buildings and within the type of work that's happening within those.
Yeah, I was just thinking moving forward in my mind.
Yeah.
All right, these are great because everything's been so awesome so far, right? I wasn't sure if it was tariffs or something along those lines that we weren't able to consider, but that's.
Basically, at the time of the SED estimate, we had knowledge that some of the buckets needed to be realigned.
Thank you.
So this is just getting into a little bit more of the why. So just the background is, our project is $116 million. Columbia High School, that was phase 1A. We had budget savings on phase 1A. You can see back here, $1.1 million. We were not able to use that because they had excess maximum cost allowance. So as part of the entire capital project budget, we were anticipating exceeding the maximum cost allowance by $18.3 million. So it's where are we exceeding the maximum cost allowance? And God was where we were exceeding that maximum cost allowance by the largest amount. So because we had those favorable bid results from phase 1B, that's where we had excess capacity in the budget to be able to use those unused budget funds to help fund the site work at Red Mill. And there's still funds available. So that's how, like, order of operations, Columbia wasn't going to help us with the budget situation at this point in time. So things are still looking good overall. So basically what we're trying to do is maximize it. And at the end of the day, the total phase 2, $409,000 deficit, and right as the bids were going out, we added what was estimated at the time, $405,000. So things are in good shape, and we're watching and monitoring carefully. Any other questions?
So the savings from Columbia that we can't use, is that something we can hold on to and then use?
Oh, absolutely.
Years? Is that how that works? Like, what
So we'll have to evaluate where we are. Like, we could use that for some other construction, perhaps. It's just how all the buckets are laying out.
Okay, but
So-
it doesn't need to wait till Columbia High School comes back up on the
No.
same timeline.
No, our spending authority is $116 million, and then it's just budget management to maximize the building needs.
Yeah. So
All right. Quick up, assistance. First up is authorization for bidder of low bidder capital project 2024 phase 2. Any questions? All in favor? Okay. So authorization to award contracts for capital project phase 2. Second, all those in favor? Approval of procurement services from Train US for General Service Administration. Motion, please. Any questions or comments? Motion to approve. Cindy, second. RP, all those in favor? And approval of state contract and piggyback purchasing from Day Automation and New Market.
Just a question on playground equipment. Is that similar to the equipment we had in our playground? Today we just finished up with one.
Yeah, similar to the Janae, playground, especially in terms of the area, but it has some different, equipment and features that, have been kind of thought of for the Red Mill Elementary School community specifically.
Is it same vendor?
You know,
Thank you.
Motion to approve. Kathy, second. Sam, all those in favor? Okay, moving on to course presentations 2026-27 preliminary salary and employee benefits budget.
So in accordance with our budget calendar that was adopted by the Board of Education, Mr. Mulligan is going to give a first look that you see in the title of this slide tonight at our program budget with the current staffing levels that we have and the other program levels that we have, what our benefits would look like to support that staff as well. Again, please keep in mind, this is the first look. I encourage the board to just remember as we go through the entire budget process, it's very much a moving target until we get to. There are so many different things that will come as long as additional time to be able with their team to look at personnel, to look at the moving target of health insurance, all the different facets of the budget until we bring the final version of the budget to the board to adopt. So again, setting the table for that. Small, going to start the presentation.
Thank you. So as Dr. Cook said, this is basically a first look, very, very preliminary. It basically is taking our current programming and bringing it into basically being able to continue today's services. Basically maintaining. So it does not, baseline budget, it does not consider potential retirements or even the retirements that we've been notified of yet. It does not include any new staff requests or program changes. It basically represents, and I'm going to use air quotes, maximum exposure. Things could go up or down, depending on, so basically we take all of our current salaries, all of our employees, and we bring them forward, we set them based on their contractual, their collective bargaining agreements. And so these are some of those salary budget assumptions that we use. So our negotiated contracts, we have estimated increases built in for some non-contracted staff. This is full capacity, so we do have some vacant positions currently, so this has all of our vacant positions also. Non-salary payments, those are the hourly substitutes, overtime, anything that's not salary based or contracted to work on an annual basis. Basically, we reviewed those, we've updated it based on the current and previous year's trends. FTEs are continuing at the current level, and trajectory retirements are not. So this is the first look taking the 25-26 adopted budget by major function area. So we have our general support, which is basically administration, outside of instructional administration, and then we have the instructional categories and transportation. So overall, our total salaries for in the budget for 25-26, we're at 55.9 million, basically 56 million. And then going into 26-27, we're looking at 58.9 million. So that's an increase of 2.9 million or 5.1%. Just see that there's some various changes within.
And then I apologize if this is wrong, this is my first time on, so sorry. These are all based on contract, right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is there any questions on this slide as well? We can go back. So the other thing is employee benefits. That's another substantial part of our budget. We do have rate increases in several areas. It's January, so although our health insurance consortium has given us some benefit rates, there could still be some changes to that. Our Highmark medical plan is increasing, unfortunately, by 16.5%. So we have our medical plans, and we also have our RX plan, which is separate. Our prescription drug is a self-funded prescription drug. Our CDPH EPO medical is going up 10.5%. So that's a new plan for us this fiscal year as a result of changes that occurred last year. I did put on here what the CDPH HMO plan increase would have been if we had stayed with that. And that was increasing. There is still one district that has that HMO plan in the consortium. That increase would have been 14%. The prescription drug, I don't have specific data on trends yet, but based on how that's been performing, we're estimating about a 20%. So this is a reflection of some of what the combined annual premiums are on our Highmark plan, individual 2-person and family, and the CDPH. One thing that was important to note, which is very helpful. Based on these increases in planned counts, we were able to have cost avoidance of about over $600,000 just from that change from the CDPHP HMO plan to CDPHP EPO plan. So that was very good. We have gotten positive feedback or no feedback, so that was a great move. And I just wanted to say thank you again to our collective bargaining units for the cooperation on that. In a short amount of time with a lot of collaboration. That was really
Hey, Jen,
Yes.
the ESI prescription drug, is that, like, how is that different from then, like, the Highmark PPO with RX?
So the Highmark and CDPHP are medical only plans, and then ESI is contracts with Highmark to deliver the pharmacy for everybody that's under Highmark or CDPHP. So basically, when we look at if anybody who's covered on a Highmark plan, they have Highmark medical plus the ESI prescription drug. If they're on the CDPHP EPO, they have the CDPHP EPO medical plan plus the ESI RX. Okay, so when we look at premiums and what the annual cost is that ESI and the Highmark medical or the CDPHP and the ESI are blended together for annual rates. And that's how we calculate employee contributions. Okay. So these are the different plan levels that we offer. So you can see as a result of the CDPHP, the increases year to year because that EPO plan was actually put into like the actual formal approval of it was after the budget process. Our 25-26 budget was carrying those higher HMO rates. So when we look budget to budget, it's not as hefty. It's not that 10.45% increase because that EPO savings is being realized at the budget level. And
Are those our costs? So.
no, these are 100% of premium.
Okay.
This is just what the total premium. So we continue, we have Medicare plans, and then we also have Medicare Advantage plans. You'll notice that the Medicare plan for Highmark is increasing higher, and that's because it's heavier on the RX, and the RX has a higher increase than the medical. And then we have our other mandated fringe rates, which is the contributions, the employer contributions to the employee retirement system, ERS, we refer to it, that's going up 3.1%. So that's driven based on payroll. So that's basically a percentage of payroll. So every dollar that we spend on ERS, we're spending 16.5 cents for contributions to the ERS plan, which is for our non-instructional. And then we have our teachers' retirement system. Actually, there's some relief in that rate just because. So one of the things with the retirement system is really unique. ERS has a fiscal year end, state fiscal year end of March 31st. And TRS has a fiscal year end of June 30th. So really the stock market performance, depending on what happens at the end of their fiscal year, could have drastic effects. Even though they do smoothing in their rate setting, it could have different effects. So June 30th, based on some of the actuarial valuations, happens to be positive. It worked out for TRS, and however they looked at how their plan was funded, ended up in a rate decrease this year. And then we have our Social Security and Medicare taxes, which are always 7.5%. So that's just a little bit of background of the major. Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
So was that rate set for TRS? Is that rate set for the year?
So what they do,
Irrespective of what the market does during that year?
yes, for the most part. So they, what they do is they issue administrative bulletins of what the range will be. Usually they maybe within 50 basis points, they'll provide what that, within 50 basis points, the rate will be. So, this budget does consider at the higher end. As time goes on, they will finalize that rate. A couple of years ago, it actually went higher than their range, only by 10 basis points, but still it did. So,
But once they do give us a rate for the year,
That's
it's
it.
locked
Yep.
in for the year.
Yep,
If the
it's
market
locked in.
crashes, they're not gonna tell us, okay.
nope, that will impact future rates. So those are all the benefit plans and the rate increases. So this is how it translates into our overall employee benefits budget. So, we have our ERS and TRS. Obviously, we have salary increases, like looking at that line for TRS, we see it going down 1.8%, but we just saw that the rate is going down 9.8%. So why is that? Well, our payroll is going up. So obviously that rate decrease helped absorb, what would normally have been an increase if that rate stayed flat. When we go down a couple lines down to the health insurance, this is where, the increases on the medical, we were seeing them in the 16.5%, 10%, 14, 20%. It's like, okay, we think maybe the average is probably definitely going to be above 10%, but it's not. And that is attributed to two factors. One is the EPO plan conversion. So obviously that helps with savings. And then also our plan counts have decreased just a little bit, just by a matter of like 10 plans. But 10 plans times $40,000 adds up, so that increase is only as just under 11. So overall, total employee benefits are going up to 0.5%. So this is just a summary, like bringing you all together what this preliminary salary increase plus the total employee benefit increases is about 5.4. Put a couple just general reference points, just points of reference with some context to it. Our total budget in 25-26 is $115.1 million. So you can see that, the salaries at $89.2 million in salaries and benefits comprises just about 78% of our total. Obviously, we do not have what that total budget number will look like for 26-27. And then I also just put a reference down at the bottom what the increase in the overall budget was from 24, 25 to 25 or 26. Our budget going into this fiscal year at 3.1% increase, which is equivalent to about $3.5 million. So this is just to provide some context, of the work. We don't have the revenue picture completely yet. The state, we're getting much state runs. That's a lot of that work is going to start looking at that. We don't have our tax cap calculation nailed down quite yet. We have certain components of it, but we don't have that full picture yet. So this is very preliminary, but just to try to give you an initial look of maintaining our current programming without community. Exactly. So.
So it went from 89, easy number, 89 to 94. Do you have any idea? Do you remember what it was, 24, 25? Just estimate.
Not at the budget level. I have our actual spending.
All right, I'm just like.
Yeah, I don't have that.
5 million. You don't have to tell me now. It's okay. I can send you notes. I have
It's
questions.
about the same one.
Okay.
At least it's 7%, but not salaries. This year.
Yeah, I mean, when looking at this just from a very large picture, this change, it probably could have done it on the back of the envelope kind of thing, months ago kind of thing. So it wasn't a little bit, it wasn't.
Okay.
I had the same questions. Total budget is one thing, but I mean, the budget went up, but the levy was not. Over the tax last year, right? And we would see the level of increases as last year. So it's concerning that, again, we're dealing with the same situation as last year. Potentially, a lot of information is coming forward. One of the things I was going to ask is, do we have an idea when we take the budgets, what do you want to come out?
Usually it's, usually it's in the latter half of January.
Did we get a sense based on the conversation, the conversation was that foundation aid is going to be about the same as it was last year?
So I'm going to speak from a political lens. A lot of the conversation is revolving around how are they going to implement the recommendations from the Rockefeller study. They only took a few baby steps forward in the last fiscal year. There's a lot of push behind the scenes to look at things like enrollment, which would obviously bode well for our district. A lot is focused around poverty camps, different school districts right now. There's recommendations based on that. I think the fiscal outlook for the state, based on what's going on at the federal level right now, is going to have large bearing on the decisions of politicians in Albany. I would say there's more uncertainty this year about what the runs are going to look like, so I don't want to give a forecast. I would say a lot of the conversation focuses on those 2 points, the Rockefeller study and the situation with the federal level.
Does the Rockefeller study or changes that they've made institute from that study, is that going to be something that's done by the legislature or can it be included in the budget itself?
So it really has, depending on the recommendation, I would say the vast majority would be done legislative.
Yeah, I think that, we're hopeful, these are comments from the governor. Okay. Proposed to go up, but you get a huge district to A, support the program, but also send the district contribution. That's a hope. Again, I see that this area is a growing concern, and reiterate what I said before, that the consortium has to work through some issues, because these, looking at that slide on the rates, yeah, it's outrageous. And I appreciate the offering the EPO plan, which was great, the district, so employee that's on. But I think, we've gone a long way in terms of working with our units on cross contribution, because I guess the question, these are rates or these is the full rates, minimum rates. So the employee contributions are not really here.
They are in the budget.
The budget, yes, right, but not the rates. So I think it's something that we have to continue to work on other levels here with the consortium. What we can do to either A, get some kind of bidding, have some looking at some things, because I don't know, the consortium is certainly.
So a couple of things, tomorrow there's a very big action.
Okay.
Yeah. So we,
Voice our frustration.
There's a couple of things that go into that high mark, and actually high mark can talk more about it. And, by all means, we can dig in deeper at a future meeting, but just at a very high level, our medical loss ratio is high. So right now, that medical loss ratio is over 1, which means that our premiums are not covering our expenses. So this particular rate doesn't only just include medical trend, it also includes making up for the high medical loss ratio. There's like 2 things happening. And similar to the prescription drug too, because the prescription drug costs have gone, that includes more than just trend. Because we've been basically in a deficit position, like in utilizing any reserve that were established for the last few years, substantially to the point where we're down below 3 months, 2 months in reserve. And that was even moving some funds from the medical reserve over to the RX. So post-COVID, I mean, there were a good few years where the increases on medical were zero. For all the consortiums, even not being released from English, but even before my time being here. So there wasn't a lot of claims. There were refunds, settlements coming back from the retrospective plans, and that tide has just completely flipped around. So, there's definitely some problems just nationally with the health insurance in general and prescription drugs that need to be addressed at a much broader level. And then, what are the things that can be controlled, globally? Obviously, working with the consortium to see whatever other efficiencies can be had, looking at, the EPO plan, looking at, is there other things we could do with prescription drugs? Also, plan design, co-pays, employee contributions, those are the things that have the most local control, obviously having to work with the collective bargaining agreements as well, but, those are, are the big things. The industry overall has a problem.
Yeah, just because of recognition that when they look at the, tax cap and the things like that and the inflation rates, the medical inflation is just huge. It impacts. Is it the Highmark Northeast New York? Or is it
I'm not in Eastern New York.
Does the tax cap, in account for increase in insurance, or is that, it doesn't, right?
It does have a component of the formula if the retirement system rates go.
Something on it.
Yes, but that's even a little unique. They say it's actual 2 percentage points. So going from 3 to 5, not a 2% increment change. So it's like,
We talked a lot last year about just how we can get the budgets for public and I think, just being really sort of blunt about our benefit costs are 60% of our, proportionate to our stuff. I mean, that's a lot.
Say that again?
Well, if you divide the 335 into 58, I mean, that's high,
Yeah.
very high. Pretty sure. So, we gotta spell that out.
It's always the hardest place to start.
Yeah.
It's such a large portion of our budget, but it has the biggest impact, and I think that's where knowing what the state is going to be, looking at the sort of the other side of the budget, but
The next 2 weeks will be very revealing when we start
Yeah,
for the very revenue.
and we're hopeful that the executive branch and legislative branch work together to be consistent.
so hopefully it's helpful just to kind of paint a very early picture, but rather than waiting to March and kind of see.
Yeah.
All right, regular business, acceptance of donations as well. Any questions? Okay,
I saw there.
Is this connected to the other one though? I thought that-
no, I think this one's.
No, it's not a donation.
That's a
pay.
We're tabling this one.
Table the
too?
A.
And
Yeah.
All right,
Do we need
so
to make a motion to table?
motion to table A and B, like, second, Robert is all those in favor. So moving on to C, master staffing services agreement with. Questions or comments? And question. RP second, Rob, all those in favor? Second reading of the Greenbush Central School District Code of Conduct for 2021. Any questions or comments?
just few discretionary comments. Obviously, we took the comments from last meeting when we looked at this. There were some formatting issues, some language issues. We made sure that we developed that up. Typically, you do go through a second reading in the future when we look at policy issues. You can do the second reading adoption and the same motion if you want to, but as this is our first run through together, I wanted to have the opportunity to look through it, but for the future, if you're more comfortable, we can do a second reading adoption at the same meeting. We vote just for a second.
Okay. Motion to approve. So we go.
Approving the second read, right, but not the.
Correct, the adoption. would go subsequent meeting.
Okay, RC, second, all those in favor? Moving on to committee reports.
All right, we had our January 7th CCS meeting, went very well. Each time we start a new business and we discussed our program review updates and our progress. And then one of the things I just wanted to know is that We had very timely progress with them. They've been moving along very nicely. Our English language learner brought forward their accomplishments, and I just really wanted to highlight some of the things that she mentioned about the program. She wanted to let everybody know that it runs through all the grades K-12 and that it runs across all disciplines. So it is a very unique department. And she's really been doing an outstanding job along with the committee. She also just mentioned that the ELA program is to assist our multilingual students who don't speak English as a first language in strengthening their communication, reading, and writing skills. I also wanted to point out that we have up to 22 different languages spoken this year, which I think is just impressive. So it really is. So one of the things a couple things I just wanted to highlight, she emphasized that some of the accomplishments, they were appreciative of the need to share. They just started last year. That we have a program now for our students for a ELA program called Benchmark Express that is helping to bridge some academic success. They highlighted that their student outcomes for data is very strong. In the next couple months, we bring some data for you for that. And I also wanted to point out that they have created these student profiles for all K-12. They have an elementary one that's very comprehensive, 4 pages long. And then at the secondary level, it's 2 pages long. And when I say profile, it gives everything right down from the name, date of birth, grades, languages that they speak, everything. It gives their data profile. It's just a snapshot of the student. And we got feedback actually at CCS that the high school teachers or tier 1 teachers are very appreciative of that. So it's a very impressive accomplishment. They endorsed, or CCS endorsed that. The school counselors shared that they really started their work on accomplishments, and I did speak to Sheriff Dunn, who has been looking at, and they will be reported their February CCS endorsement accomplishments. Talked about 2 new textbooks in our business department. One of the things I need to do is sit down with this department. They endorse them at the committee, but I need to sit down and really talk about costs and really look at our curriculum. One of the things with our business department, we have pathways right now. State and approved. We also have through college and high school, through Hudson Valley, these particular classes, business marketing and personal finance, we have through our college and high school. And I really want to sit down and talk about if we're going to bring a new textbook to these classes, how are we looking at our curriculum with a very critical lens and making sure that we're staying current. So that would be work as well. So I would be bringing that forward in the coming months as well. Yes.
Lisa, I was wondering, so we do it through Hudson Valley, but we don't get the curriculum for Hudson Valley.
We do not have
We just would look over our curriculum, sign off on it, and say we'll get credit for that.
Yes, there are multiple layers. They have to first they have to certify that the teacher is I guess credible, so to say, and then they will. You don't have to supply, but typically you do supply your curriculum, and then they kind of sign off as well as assessments. You let them know what book textbook you're using, and they will sign off on it. Yes. Other colleges, very different. You go to SUPA, which is Syracuse University. They are more, you have to get certified as a teacher through them. Then you go to Syracuse, and just giving an example, you actually have to develop the curriculum with them, different program. SUNY Albany, similar to more Hudson Valley school affiliates. There are some
Could that affect acceptability at the next level? Are we seeing that there are a certain amount of colleges that will accept super courses and not Hudson Valley courses?
I would say 90% of all of them are transferring into colleges. We have some families that will say they're taking so many courses at college and high school, they're going into sophomore into many universities. Yes, shaking head out there. Very impressive. And Hudson Valley, I have a family that's their student went to Siena, and all of the Hudson Valley courses transferred to Siena.
That's my daughter who went in Delaware with you.
Yeah. We do have a new course proposal, and it's endorsed by, which we'd like to bring again to the board in the coming months. we have our economics. It will be called Introduction to Microeconomics. Hudson Valley has approved it as a college and high school. I would like Wendy McAloney to come and actually talk to you about this because she really wants to be able to do that. We did a lot of work. We didn't just look at Hudson Valley. And for me being too, I wanted to look at the other colleges. So I did look at Albany and I looked at Syracuse. And we decided that Hudson Valley really offers, it makes it more opens the doors for more students, where Syracuse maybe not as many. So Hudson Valley is a better option for our families and for our children. So I have coordinate with Governor Coates about when we can present the board for that. But he's excited to do that. Drew Rubenowski is also, he's the instructor. Yes.
I'm sorry, when you say opens more doors, is that just mainly cost factor?
I would say more students are going to more of our, if you look at a percentage of students that are going to Hudson Valley versus Syracuse, it just offers, that's what I mean by offering. And I will tell you, it is cheaper. It is, they do it by credit hour. Which I can tell you, that's what I mean by offer. The offers are more. It's just gives more opportunity, more students can access it, access Hudson Valley. Not all students are going to be accepted to Syracuse.
So this is different than there already is the economics class.
Yes, but they are looking to actually not offer that. So it would be a combination of the AP and honors.
Also, this is almost a replacement of.
Yes,
Oh, I'm
correct.
sorry, that was a new, I thought it was.
Yeah, I had to learn that as well myself. It's replacement. I also wanted to give, I think accelerated course work is always, courses are always a topic of conversation. And one of the things I want to do, and I will have Sarah Hoffman, I'd like to actually have her bring it forward. She is looking at and working with the department chairs in mathematics and science about creating a new rubric or an updated, let's say, rubric around eligibility for accelerated courses at the middle school level. So right now we have accelerated classes in mathematics and in science. Right now we have measures, but the rubric really brings multiple measures. It brings more of a comprehensive lens to help us with this eligibility criteria. There's a lot of times there's questions. Well, why didn't they get into it? What was the reason? Having more than one reason, or maybe having multiple reasons, just gives you a better case to say, well, we looked at this, we looked at this, we looked at this, we looked at this. She brought it to CCS. We had great discussion. Nothing was endorsed. I asked her to go back, revisit the rubric, and bring it back to CCS for endorsement. And then I'd like her to present it to you as well.
So years ago, that was firmed up many years ago by the department and for a lot of issues about why did one student, why kid not get in, another kid did not get in. There was really nothing with teacher recommendation.
Which is very subjective, yes.
Yes, the subjectivity. And then there was some objectivity put in the system, which is currently, and now you're refining that to get into our objective criteria.
And one of the things we didn't use in the past, we haven't used is our universal screen for STAR assessment. And as you all know, STAR reading, for example, even though I said in mathematics and science, if anyone has taken a look at this, our new science test in 8th and 8th grade, it's a reading test. So if we're going to have a student going to an accelerated science test, we want to make sure that they are accelerated in their reading. One of the other things that STAR does in terms of math is it provides us with it'll say exceeding algebra readiness. So there's just, by having multiple measures, it's just having a clear case for why they're.
So I just want to make sure too that it's don't get screened back. Because that was a concern too, was that kids weren't given an opportunity to probably could be successful. It seemed like it was some, I guess, overly aggressive picking in terms of who got it.
I think this will, I'm hoping, I know this will make that. I do know we
I like to see this.
Yes, definitely. I told her, I said, look, we're not going to endorse anything today because there was a lot of great conversation around it. We weren't nowhere near ready to talk.
Yeah, because this was a big issue for parents. The
We have two classes running, it's, you know, the classes are full.
Because I really think that sequencing this from middle school and high school, these are a lot of the same children, students who are going to be progressing to those other classes.
So the other kids are-
Of AP of high school, but we want to make sure that there's opportunity for everybody in this process, because I don't want kids getting closed out or maybe didn't get in, and all of a sudden they don't have enough to down the road.
I just have a question more generally about the pros and cons of college and high school versus AP. So is college and high school, is that an agreement between the district and one particular college, whereas AP is kind of universally accepted more or less?
Universally, yeah, I think college and high school, even though like, for example, this one that is Hudson Valley, it is an agreement with Hudson Valley. One of the things I asked is I wanted to ensure that it would be transferred into more than one college. Like, for example, Siena, it's transferred, the rate is above 90% that transfers into other schools yet. And so there's.
So those are agreements that we make with particular colleges, whereas I think AP, does that go through like the college boards? So that-
Boards.
Right, so then the colleges and universities go through that. And then is there, it's been a long time since I was in an AP class, but is there a cost to families for, college and the high school? I don't know if it's still the same way, but it used to be like AP, you know, you got to take the course and the exam.
It's for credit.
Okay.
Yes, it's for credit, and Hudson Valley is all of them, it's cheaper, it's a community college, very affordable. But it is cheaper than if you were there as a college student, so it's cheaper.
There's a few additional layers to the and bringing data on that. Number one, college and high school, regardless of the college, university, and always there's the way that is that's why it's very attractive for students. Take this course. The other data trend that we're watching very closely at secondary level, AP for many years was the same. If you were looking to apply to a highly competitive college or university, we're looking at AP scores, potentially getting credit for some of those courses you're actually in college. We're now watching data trends that show that they're certainly looking at AP scores for the awarding of credit is dropping dramatically. Where I don't want to call it a market, but there is a market for a college and high school experience. If I apply to Syracuse University, I'm carrying 9 credits. How big is it?
Yeah.
We talked about that, the AP, that you may have taken AP economics in high school, but then you go to college and you haven't taken economics yet.
It'll cover, so what it'll help cover is your core things you're not going to be able to, right? So if you take AP economics and you get a really good score and you want to do something unrelated to economics to cover it, that's what we'll do with the AP or even you pay for it. So if you're a student, you take an AP class, do you pay for the class and the exam or just the exam?
Just the exam. Okay. So speaking from personal experience, having both is really nice, because where my son went, you could only transfer in up to 30 AP credits, but because he also had college and high school, he ended up with 12 or 48 credits that he was able to transfer between AP and college and high school. And he didn't being able to transfer in everything he had taken because it wouldn't fulfill the requirements where he was. So having both allows students to transfer in even more than just maybe if they have a cutoff in the market.
But it is specific to schools.
Yes, it is up to the school what they take.
A specific
Right.
school might need to check.
Yeah.
There might be a school that still not take that as well, but we would take an AP score.
Right.
So if we have a specific.
And they have, and
destination,
different schools have different cutoffs for, like, some take a 3 on APs and some will take a 4, some will take. So.
Going back to the accelerator program, it's just one of the things I've always struggled with, and my kids over in old school or so good for that, but if you're really getting around 5th, 6th grade, or do you want to be in an accelerated program, and Mike brought it up, it's like, I don't know if it's unfair or what the right word is, but it's really sort of harsh that you're a kid that didn't start strong in 5th and 6th grade. Now, you're not going to be ahead in math, you're not going to be ahead in science. I don't know if somebody, what new program you're talking about, maybe there's a way you can test them, and maybe that's all, I don't know if there's a way to change something like that besides the seventh grade.
They do have replacement tests as well, so that would be additional measure. I think it is, I hear you, I know what you're saying, everyone matures at a different level, and you want to be able to say, oh, there's potential, or can there be potential? And I think when we have criteria, or cut points, or classes where we have to we have 50 spots. If we don't have some kind of criteria that's objective, then we start falling into that gray zone where then people start to question, is there some kind of favoritism, and what's our decision-making process? So when you keep it really clean and you're saying we're looking at the data and we're using that teacher recommendation as a last kind of, I call it the pathway, we're down here with some potential of, what's the homework like, what's their classwork like, how are they, just all those layers. I just think when you don't follow a strong criteria, multi-measure, like objective lens, and you get into that gray area.
Well, it's just that I'm just saying it's, you're in the fifth grade, sixth grade, figuring this out. But what about the other question I really had too was, actually, it's not for training thought on that. Oh, our kids, so we have 50 spots. Are there more than 50 kids that meet the criteria that don't get in? And how do we figure out which kids aren't getting in?
I don't believe there was that many, but I can get you that data. I don't believe there's that many.
You don't get to now. I was really talking about this.
Yeah, those are great questions. Something that I would.
Well, and my children are doing now, that we just went through this process. And I will say, like, the placement test is nice in that it's objective, but I happen to have one child who's an incredibly sticker, but not always on top of the classwork stuff. So having this comprehensive rubric, I think, will give us a better job. Because the test gives us one piece of information, but that's just one piece. And sitting down and doing a great test isn't everything that you need to have in class. So I like this idea of kind of broadening looking at, and maybe using those STAR test results. They weren't necessarily knowing at the time before that, we're just seeing their network in general. I think there's a lot that we can factor into this. So the rubric is also going to give us a way to explain to parents how we factor in. Even though we probably haven't factored in a lot, but this will give us a better contract explanation.
I think the flip side of that is, I think there are also students who are really good students and just really bad test takers who get excluded based on a bad exam on what this.
And that's why it is nice to have more than one measure to see that. And so I will, when Sarah brings it forward, I think you'll be able to please see the criteria and the different measures that it's a very fair process.
And this is an area that's near and dear to us all, right? And say one more thing is that every student should have the opportunity to change themselves. And whether they meet some of this criteria or not, so I feel. But also the progression. I know my kids were into some but were in some of their lives. And then they ran into a trouble point, their progression, of course, they have to take to just make sure that those options are streamlined or whatever the outcome.
I just have one more question about the economics versus college and high school. I know we already talked about it for a little while, so I'm sorry, but I was just wondering how we specifically chose the economics course specifically to be something to talk about as something that's going to be modified, and to foresee our school like individually like the team. It's really interesting.
I think I don't have that crystal ball answer as of today, but if you ask me, if you ask me about the state of the state in terms of first year graduate and looking at different pathways and then sunsetting through diplomas and moving to one and new credit requirements in the future, possibly. I can't say. I do think there's going to be designations and seals, so I don't know, but there's a lot to be looking forward to, right? Because it's going to bring some more sensitivity in the academy. to all of our students.
Our bar is those.
I'm gonna be telling my I don't know if you guys know, sort of it. Is we have like some of the enough stays in our school. I think they'll be so excited to hear that word.
I was wondering about your bringing that back announcement. I was wondering about you guys.
Yeah, I wanted to like tell them more. It's really beautiful.
I actually think
We taught at, for those that didn't know that.
oh, that's right. That's right. Sorry.
Yes.
They've been talking about bringing this to college and high school for a couple of years now. I just think maybe it just felt like the right time for them. Sometimes that's what it is. But you know, one of the things that's been, it's really eye-opening for me, when I spoke to Hudson Valley, and they said, no, these are all of our college and high schools that offerings across the region. So that really opened up my eyes to start having a more broad conversation with the high school about what we do. Really excited about that. So, any other questions?
We got the report? Or
I was just gonna quickly, I'll let people know that we're gonna be having our Portrait of a Graduate, we're reconvening the Portrait of a Graduate Committee. It's gonna be a subcommittee, and then we will report out at CCS on February 6th, our half day. And then the technology update, we provided an update. We actually just had one. The committee meeting is creating a tech plan for 4 years underway, and he's going to have the AI subcommittee as well, starting up in the spring. Certainly still
Plugging away.
10% here in the technology, which is great. And I just wanted to let people know that we have 2 more professional developments coming up. We have February 6th, which is a half day. We have some great offerings already in the hopper. We have a mentor refresher training, which I'm really excited about because we have mentors that have not had a pairing, and they've been mentors for 5 years. So we want to make sure that they're staying fresh and current. And, you know, a lot of other exciting offerings in terms of getting also a nice safety offering around doing some tabletop conversations around scenarios. And on March 13th, they were going to be participating with Cluster 3's Regional Day, which they already have a theme, and they're calling for experts, which I always really encourage our teachers to get involved with that, where you actually present to regional colleagues. It's not just our own colleagues, so it's exciting. And their theme is Portrait of Tomorrow, Reimagining Education. Great things like future design, future-ready learners, innovative technology and AI. They've got thriving schools, wellness. I would say that's important, and how to educate. So, great things coming back. Special learning. Next time, book.
Thank you, Mrs. Hart. I just wanted to give a shout out and recognition to the English language learning program. The program review is really impressive, and really want to recognize all the work they're doing with reaching out to the families. They're doing meeting with families, organizing events that celebrate family traditions. They're organizing orientations for students and the families that offer translation materials, translated materials. You know, it's not easy moving to another country, not speaking the language that most of the people around you are speaking, and it's I'm really proud of what they're doing and salute them for making sure that these families who are part of our community know that they're part of our community. And I hope these students, families, I hope these students graduate from our district knowing that they always belong here and we consider that. So many thanks to Ms. Idle Lindbergh and all her colleagues working on this and your guidance on this too. Thank you.
I was wondering, did we receive any feedback from the state about the requirements for financial literacy, climate, education? Has there been any guidance at all?
Not as of no, not yet. But they're adopting in March, trying to anticipate that adoption go through. And we have not gotten the objectives yet, which is what they're going to do. We do have the 5 topics, the general broad topics. We know that the course forecast can be either embedded for instruction, or it can be the same course, or it can be a hybrid of the two. We're learning, and it's okay because we're starting a committee, we're starting conversations about how that has to be brought in. Has to be brought in at the high school level, and it has to be for next year, September. And it has to be brought in at the middle school level. Starting next year.
One of the biggest questions that we're asking, is it a cohort rollout, or does it have to be a first? That would be significant in terms of the implementation.
I kind of budget.
It's a number of.
Is it possible that if they're gonna tell you, talk to you about it in March and have that much of an impact, being new, because I have no idea if that's something that can ever happen.
Usually, I will say this delicately, but there is some grace with the early rollout like this. There is an expectation that you're making a concerted effort to implement something from the 4-3 school, like we're about your planning process. I'm not putting that there. Support for them to get that knowledge. So
That's part of the reason why I think they're saying you can have a hybrid of the two. If you can't afford, so to say, to hire 2 FTEs to have standing course, then you have the option of having it be embedded, which is where we're going to move. And then it can be hybrid, and then it doesn't have to be from year to year the same way. That if it for 1 year in the sand, I call it sketched in the sandbox, that we're going to do it this way, a gap year. Then as we go through the years, we can, we shift it over here. So one of the things I would say is Columbia and the secondary level and the middle school level, they're all in this and they're ready. And if you look at the 5 topics, they're important. They're important for our children. We need to have them, financial planning is so important. They're good.
What is our district's timeline for making a decision about whether it's going to be a better understanding of the course? What's the process and what's the timeline?
Once it's adopted in March, I'd like to, by the end, once the objectives come out, which they're saying is going to provide us with some guidance around what the curriculum should look like. I'd like to have it for the spring so that by spring, we can go into the summer with some curriculum writing. So we have to implement it in the new year because the New York State is asking for us to verify how it's been brought to the district at grade bids. So that's the.
But at what point does the decision get made whether it's going to be embedded or a standalone course?
Probably the next couple months, so yeah. We're having another meeting next Thursday. So we've already had one. I build awareness. I just let the committee, this small little group, I have the high school and middle school core people. I have our social studies, our CT teachers on it. I have a school counselor on it, a principal. And I can tell you this, middle school, we're good. We're in a good place. So I'll be able to report right after adoption in March. As soon as the budget, when it's a good time, we'll.
Like volunteers that want to do it, is that what you mean? Like people that want to teach it?
No, it would be embedded. It would be embedded. You mean like junior achievement, right?
I don't know what I mean.
Banks can do these things, right? Here's the thing. This is going to require, New York State has some guardrails. They're saying you have to have it, if you're going to put it in your business class, then that teacher has to be certified in business. If you're going to put in your economics class, that teacher has to be certified in social studies. So I can say at the middle school level, if we decide to put it in the facts class, they have to be certified in business.
So it's not every kid
It
has to take this.
Every student. I
So
can,
it
I
can't be
can
business
get
then,
it.
because it can't be the business class, right? It would have to be in like government or history.
Well, it would have to be a class that every student is required to take. Economics, for example, is a class that every student in 12th grade has to take.
And you like.
Just to piggyback on the question, why was, forgive me for,
No.
based on the qualification of one of our educators, school conversations that have already been had. There's somebody highly qualified.
Yeah. These are not, in the topics. I'll be happy to share what the topics are and just give you some information about it. A lot of we're doing it already, especially in the middle school. Any other questions? I'd be happy to share a nice portrait of a graduate presentation.
Okay, moving on to, the advocacy committee and legislative.
So I'm going to take 30 seconds of latitude here that I just wanted to make sure the board saw and talked based on our previous conversation on artificial intelligence. There is an upcoming online training that Questar is going to be hosting on February 19th. Both Mrs. Mahar and I have registered. The presenter is an industry expert. I did a little bit of research in the background. I think it's going to be a very, very engaging presentation. It is being done online. If the board had any interest in registering and wants to come together and watch the presentation together as a group, we can host that at the board office. It is scheduled for Thursday, February 19th at 5:30 p.m. or simply you can watch it from home if that's more convenient, but I just wanted to open the door for that. If you miss this and you need to send it, just shoot an email tomorrow. I'm glad to get this out to you so you can look and register if you are. Now, to my agenda item, committee report. On the 8th, we held another advocacy committee meeting. The agenda included looking at setting a district-wide priority update so that when we got to advocacy time in March, when we would go and visit the state capitol, we would have a concrete agenda at the committee level. One of the things I did share during the committee meeting, I do sit as the state co-chair for the legislative committee and the state superintendent's association. So I was able to share the current what we call the top 10 in this update of legislative priorities. We can put that together. We are going to be hosting a legislative open house breakfast on the 22nd. Next Thursday at 8:30 p.m. for our local, state, and federal elected officials. The goal of this is to simply invite our elected officials in to see the good work that we're doing. We want them to have an opportunity to see where their work goes. We're tentatively planning to have them visit the hay room because that is something that is connected to federal funding. At the middle school, certainly we will be talking a little bit about safety and security as we have an agreement with Rensselaer County for an SRO there. And then we're still working on our agenda for the high school. It's a little bit of a tough time for a visit at the high school as they get exam time, but we have some good ideas that we're working out there for as well. We hope that the whole program will take about an hour and a half, because we know their time is certainly valuable as well, and that they won't want to be bound for too long, but we'll do that very, very quickly. We also discussed at the committee level the fact that the New York State legislative session is now open. We did target a date in March where we hope to take a group of students and any board members who are interested in going to schedule some meetings and appointments to meet with our high-level elected officials to bring our hopes, concerns, aspirations of what we would like to see in the next legislative session. March is still a good time to go, as they have not gotten too far down the road in terms of adoption of budget or any new legislative items that may come up. As we start to develop our advocacy agenda, I'll be certain to share with the whole board. Like I said, we had some very good ground level conversations, but we're looking forward to some of the good work that is to come. Thank you to all of our partners and all of our bargaining units who are helping us with this, and continuing to make sure that our goals and priorities are heard at all levels of government.
Old business. Consent agenda, any questions or comments on that? consent? Okay, motion to approve. 15 seconds. RP, all those in favor? Any more business? Public forum?
We'll move on. Yeah, so in an email, I talked about put together some things around the budget, the agenda topics, and I'd like to schedule some time in one of our meetings, if the board is okay with it, to talk about what we'd like to see to help Curtis in terms of guide them through the agenda topics. See, I'm going to bring up UK. There's some definitely interest levels and how do we squeeze some things off board goals, how do we squeeze some things about district goals, and how we can, craft the agenda to have a nice mix of academic, strategic, and business goal kind of things as part of our meetings to make sure that we plan those out across the course of a year. It can help us guide in terms of sequencing things and looking at the different timelines we have, like our board goals, or of course our 2 years sheet plan. So I think if we can do that in the next couple of meetings, assess that. Board's okay with that.
Maybe the next meeting, like, I'm asking you for your experience is that if we wait too much longer, are we getting,
No, I think next week, that's what we want to do. Talk about how that structure will look, and I think that'd be helpful to us to just see how we want to make any changes or bring up some sort of topics and schedule it for down the road. Obviously, the budget piece, capital project are huge components of what we're doing right now. But things that, here in Lisa, Steve, sort of what other activities in the district that we're trying to squeeze in, plus, staff and student presentations. And that sounds. Far around September. Where are we? Yeah. All right. What was up?
I probably have
Student district.
Central. Moving on to the second public forum. Board forum.
I just wanted to say thank you to teaching assistant Kathleen Childs for all her hard work and congratulations on her tenure.
Lisa brought up the mentors and exploration against student influence mentors. It's always great to see their teachers getting back to support their students and do that kind of work. So it's really good experience, and it's wish we could see post more because I know it's very challenging to get kids into the profession. Or you share that.
It's great to be back at health trauma. It's made me very happy.
Quickly, I'd just like to say that before holiday break, some Columbia High School band students were able to travel to all the different elementary schools and not Thursday and Friday and play for the elementary kids. And as someone who witnessed that, as someone here in Belltop, and then who played for the kids at the elementary schools, I just like to say thank you to the district for coordinating the transportation and me and the teachers to do that. That's a great tradition for the older kids to play for the younger kids, and then the younger kids to get that holiday cheer and also see the talent that our older musicians have. Thank you.
They also played at the holiday gathering, which was really nice. We took the holiday that the faculty and staff had an opportunity to mingle and able to stop by, but it's been a challenging year, and so it was nice to see people getting together under good circumstances. Really nice to hear some people.
Winter, I should have mentioned all the kids from here. Winterfest is on Saturday, so if you could remember to talk to people, it starts at 8:30, runs until 3. Holly's gonna make Holly a million, we're gonna make sure kids know about it. Be there. And then, what day is it? Is it this Friday? Friday. Max, what time?
6 to 9.
At the recovery. Yeah.
Moving into executive session to discuss proposed pending or current litigation. Would be in there to return. So, any motion? Ron, second. All those in favor? Moving back to the legal motions, first up, acceptance of donation of funds. Any questions? All right, any motion?
I feel like I should.
RP, second. Rob, all those in favor? Okay. And then, approval of agreement with RKT Lighting and Electric LLC. Rob, second, RP, all those in favor? Okay. Now, motion to adjourn. Kathy, second, Sam, all those in favor? All right.